Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Health Hangouts with Amanda. This video series is all about spreading strength, hope, and love to those of you who are struggling out there and don't know how to ask for help or aren't sure kind of how to navigate the waters with the pandemic. And every day I've released a video as promised about just an interview with another person about what they're doing to navigate their own storm personally and professionally. And we're coming up to a place where a lot of provinces in Canada and states in America are reopening a lot of businesses, and so we're coming up to that, middle of May. So pretty quick here. And so we will be concluding this video series on the 18th of May. And so if anybody has any feedback, wants more content, just let us know and we can provide that for sure. But the doors are opening and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. If it's too soon or not, it's hard to say exactly. But today we have Brian Wright with us. Hi, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, good, thanks. Brian and I have known each other for well, it's been a year and a half or something
Like
ish
that.
like that.
Yeah.
And he and I did some work together back then. And I've been following Brian on his social media channels. Brian is a ghostwriter. He is a magazine producer, and he's a radio show host and a media personality. And so it's really wonderful, Brian, that you volunteered your time to be here with us today. I'm really excited to hear about that. Like, you're down in Arizona.
Yes.
And to hear about how you're navigating things for yourself. So I'd love to hand it over and you can introduce yourself a bit more, talk a little bit about what your business is, and then I'm just going to ask you questions.
Perfect. Awesome. So I don't know how far back I should go, but I would say the first thing I will say is I have a teaching background, and I used to teach in college. So I do have a master's degree in adult education from the University of Nebraska. I got my bachelor's at Iowa State University in communication studies. And my initial goal was to teach in college, and I got to do that for about 5 years. I taught at a 2-year business school called Lincoln School of Commerce. They're no longer open, but I taught public speaking, English composition, and business math. You might think, wow, those are pretty diverse courses. Well, they were all required. They were all general studies courses. And so it was my job to make it as fun and interesting as possible, because these were classes people had to take. They didn't really want to. They weren't electives. So you had to take these classes. So I tried to make it really fun. And I think I did a decent job at doing that. They kept me for a while, so it's all good. But I enjoyed that experience. I did some resume writing on the side while I was doing that. So I basically helped people find jobs, which was pretty cool, because I got to help people further their career. And the teaching part was helping people prepare for their career. So I love all of that. Then at one point, we had a director of sales who did not believe in Yellow Page advertising. This was pre-internet, and we got most of our leads from the Yellow Pages, the Yellow Book. And this guy pulled our ads, and our enrollment went from 450 to 250 in about 8 or 9 months. And so when your enrollment is half, guess what happens to the demand for your teaching staff? So my full-time position got reduced to part-time because of numbers. And eventually there weren't enough courses to go around at all. So I did resume writing full-time for a while. I ended up moving to Arizona in '96 after spending 8 years in Nebraska. Ended up in the call center world for a while. Calling people.
Goodness, I've done that too.
Calling businesses in some roles, calling consumers in some roles. Ended up getting promoted in a lot of companies that I was in. I had a training position created specifically for me on 2 occasions because I did well. And people, the people in charge asked, how are you doing this? And of course, when you excel way beyond everyone else, they listen to you to see if you're cheating. I've nothing to hide. I just did what I did, and they wanted me to be the trainer. So I did. And in one role, I got to do payroll. I love math. I know I'm a nerd. I love math. And so I did payroll for 3 locations at this one call center, and they had about 400 employees between all 3 centers. I did payroll every week. That kept me very, very busy. Eventually, I ended up working for a real estate agent and called people in his area to find out who wanted to buy and sell their homes and invite people to go to open houses. Meanwhile, I was starting my business, and I started my radio show in 2012. So I was doing my show while I was doing some of these other things, and I worked for people who were very understanding of that. It was interesting though, because this real estate agent, who is still a good friend of mine even now, he realized that I was more interested in building my business and I was spending less time at work. My hours were flexible. And so after several conversations, we decided that maybe it's just best if I go my own way. And I was fine with that. In fact, the next day I thought, I'm free. And I'm like, wait a minute. Then Monday came around and realized I didn't have anywhere to go. That's when the freak out started happening. I'm like,
Yeah, absolutely.
My routine just got busted. And now what do I do? And it took a while for me to get my business going to a place where it would be self-sufficient. But I did fine. I've been ghostwriting now for about 3 or 4 years now, and started getting more ghostwriting clients. And it's interesting, when you put the intention out there, the universe will line up for you. I just started telling people I write books for people. I mean, I used to be an English teacher, and I had one of my own books at the time. So I could legitimately say I write books because I had written a book. And so I just started telling people I write books. And after a while, some traction started happening. And now I have people messaging me saying, I want to write a book. Let's talk. Great. Let's talk. And so my business has evolved. I do my radio show. I do a magazine now called Success Profiles Magazine, which is an extension of the radio show, Success Profiles Radio. I just had a whole bunch of content I wanted to repurpose. That's really where it came from.
Right.
So I've got this content that's just laying around that I've used once. How else can I repurpose this? Because here's the thing, when you repurpose content in a lot of different ways, and I hope you do this when your book is out, people may know you have a book, but they may not know you do coaching. People may know you do coaching, but they don't know you have a magazine. People may know you have a magazine, but they don't know you ghostwrite. So all of those things start to synergize together. And so I advocate, get your content out there in as many ways as possible. And when you have a radio show and you repurpose your interviews into a magazine or into a book like this, and I've got another one of these too, or when you start doing Facebook Lives based on the content that you talked to your guest about, it's out there, and new people start coming into your universe and they think, oh, that's really cool. And you know, what's really cool is when someone experiences you and likes you, they will start looking for what else you're doing. I do this with music all the time. When I first heard of Coldplay, for example, back in 2001, I bought their first album. They won a Grammy Award for Best New Artist and Best Album. And when they put their second album out, I had to buy it. And when I discover an established artist for the first time, I look and see what else have they done. Oh my gosh, they did this and this and this. I'm going to go listen to all of it, and I end up buying it.
Well, when you did Entrepreneur Live,
yes,
and I subscribed to that, and I listened to all those interviews, and then what I did from there is I went and I looked up those people and looked up like what they're doing, what books they're writing, what they stand for, what their businesses are about, how they're consulting, and it ended up being a lot more investment than just listening to these interviews, because I learned so much from not everybody, but I appreciated more than others. But then, I've purchased some services or products from some of these people as a result of watching them on your show there. So that was really good. And you've done, you mentioned in January, you did Entrepreneur Live 2.0.
Yep. Go to entrepreneurlive.com. If you want to see who my speakers were, a few of the speakers were the same, but not all. And there were bonus sessions this time. It's $47. You can't even shake a stick at that. 10 sessions plus, I think, 4 bonus sessions. And so we talked about publishing. One of my people talked about how to write book proposals and how to write press releases. She's a ghostwriter too. But here's the thing. Yes, I invited another ghostwriter onto my platform. Oh, but there's competition. Well, not really, because she doesn't write the same kind of books that I do, number one. Sure. And she knows about writing press releases, and she knows about writing book proposals. And that's not my zone at all. And so I said, okay, Arlene, come tell my people about this. I want to learn it from you. Yeah. And so you find where there's not overlap and you help each other. In fact, I just referred a client to her recently. It's like this client wanted to write a book that was very political and exploring conspiracies. And I didn't want to, I mean, it's a book that has to be written, but not by me. And so I found somebody, I paired this person up with somebody who I think will be a better writing partner. And so
wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, Brian, is actually I had an interview with a guy named Terry, who's another counselor who brought onto this show. And and we talked all about collaboration. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, so you do the same thing that I do, but
Yeah.
you do it differently than I do. You have a different personality than I do, or that any of my staff have. So it's like, yeah, we will send specific clients over to you because you'll do a better job, it'll be a better fit.
Yeah.
And you send specific clients over to us. And so it's like this collaborative effort. So I love that.
Yeah. And people get so hung up on competition. That is so old school. Let's collaborate. Let's build a
I
world
agree.
together. Let's play in the sandbox. And if you don't play nice in the sandbox, I just won't invite you in anymore. That's all.
That's true. Yeah, you go do your own thing if you don't play nice,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Doors
I
over there.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So Brian, what's the name, what's the website or the name of your business that you can share with our viewers?
BrianKWright.com. So it's my name, BrianKWright.com. Find out about my books, my ghostwriting, my radio show, magazines. It's all there.
Awesome. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that link on our write-up when we post this video.
Good.
So that's great. So how have you been navigating this pandemic? Like we're like, some people are 2 months in now. Governments are talking about reopening. Even Arizona is talking about reopening on the 15th, which is 2 days from now.
Yes.
So how have you been navigating it? I mean, you work from home, so I don't know if it's been that different for you, but.
The actual work part of it has not been very different at all, except going to networking meetings in person isn't happening. So they pivoted to online, and they do networking events all over town every week. And so now they do all of them online, which means I can go to more meetings than I used to.
Because you don't have to drive everywhere?
I don't have to drive everywhere. I do miss the handshakes and the hugs. I am such a hugger. I miss that very much. Yeah. But I'm able to go to more meetings, and I've met more people, and I've had more one-on-ones. I'll tell you what, though, I went to a live event the weekend before the shutdown happened. So I drove to Houston from Phoenix, which is like a 17-hour drive.
Oh, wow.
Well, the reason I drove instead of fly was because I edited this guy's magazine, and I brought a couple boxes of magazines to his event and some of my books. Sure. And so I did that, and it was fun. I got a different car in February, and so road trip with my new car for the first time. So that was fun. I love road trips. Yeah, so that was fun. It was a nice 2-day drive, and went to this event and met some people who I thought I was going to get to do some business with, and started following up with them the week after. And this is after the shutdown happened, and they all said, I want to wait this out. I want to wait until I see what happens. I want to see how this impacts my business. And one of my potential clients, who I think I'm still going to work with on a book, we've been like talking, and he's been feeding me stuff. We haven't formally started yet, but what he told me was, I don't know if I'm gonna have a business after this or not. Now that's a scary thing to hear. And so obviously I didn't push very hard on that. He'll come around when he's ready and when his business is ready for him to make that kind of investment. But I'll tell you what, when everyone puts the stop sign in front of you at the same time, it's a little scary. There were tears, I won't lie, because I didn't know what was gonna happen. It's like, how can I pivot my business? I didn't want to have to go get a job again. And there's nothing wrong with having a job. I did that for years. I like my time freedom. I really value my time freedom. I value being able to make my schedule. Now, a lot of people think when they have a business, oh, you're on your boss. Yeah, you are your own boss, but in reality, your customers are sort of your boss too, because you have to get stuff done and you have to meet deadlines. But at least you have the freedom to create your schedule so that you can schedule things when you're ready to do them. For example, I'm a morning person, so I try and do some of my most brain intensive things in the morning, and I try to do some of my more mindless things in the late afternoon because I don't want to think. At 4 o'clock, I don't want to think anymore. So I might do data entry kinds of things or administrative stuff, kind of stuff, or maybe I'll do some editing where I'm not actually writing. I'll just look at what I've already written. It's like, oh, I need a comma there. Oh, that extra word. Those are brainless compared to actually creating. So I do that. And so it's a good idea to know yourself well enough. When are you the most alert, and what tasks require most of your alert attention, and pair those up. And that makes you more efficient and you get more done. Something else I've also learned is have a short list of things you can do in 10 or 15 minutes. Because when you have appointments online, and you experience this because you do your stuff online, people are late for appointments, or stuff comes up, or they have to postpone. Instead of just twiddling your thumbs and waiting for so-and-so to show up, work on something that you can break away from anytime you need to. And when you hear hello on your Zoom, okay, hi, how are you? Let's go. And so it's great. And so you learn to make better use of your time. I have used this time to create a lot of content. Just like you have.
Yeah, I imagine. Yes, we've been creating lots and lots of content, and hour videos ish every day. And it's interesting. What I've learned is that that's quite a project of managing time with people, and there's some chasing that's involved, and then rescheduling that's involved, and a lot of invitations go out, and I get a lot of rejections also, like, no, I'm absolutely not interested in doing a video, right? So it's where I'm petitioning people to participate. But we have been, as the promise said, like, we've been successful in posting a video until the doors reopen. Now we're only in phase 2. There's 4 phases, but we need to be realistic about, like, when people start to be able to leave their homes, then they have more that they can be doing out in the communities. Like, what I'm finding is that mental health is highly affected as a result of having to stay home, and there's more abuses that happen at home. There's greater issues, like people can't leave, they're having to work through things. Some people will be getting divorces after this. Some people have gotten closer, which is amazing. But what it boils down to, I'm learning in these videos, as I ask people what they're doing to manage, is it's a change of mindset and an acceptance of what is, because we can't change that, right? So you're saying, like, even you had some tears, like, what's going to happen, all this unknown. And so did I, right? And I laid on the couch for quite a few days and didn't know what to do with myself. And so coming out of that, and I'm feeling much more balanced, even though my business is online. There's a personal aspect of, like, we can't go and hug our moms, or our, we can't see our friends and things like that. So it sounds like the business aspect hasn't changed much for you, but have you noticed an influx of people coming in wanting more services or wanting more coverage from you? Or
in the last month or so, I've had more conversations than I've had in quite a long time. In fact, it's interesting. The May issue of my magazine, Success Profiles Magazine, is going to be based around a movie called How Thoughts Become Things. And it's being billed as a sequel to The Secret. And some of the same people are in it. The Secret addressed, the law of attraction, ask, believe, receive, but was very short on how do you do it. How Thoughts Become Things explains more of the how you do it, the science behind it. And so the producer, Doug Vermeeren, sent a whole bunch of those people to me to interview them. And they're all going to be in the issue of my magazine. It's going to be the biggest issue of my magazine yet in 2.5 years. And I'm working on the last one of those articles right now. My designer has just about everything he needs to give me a full draft. And I'm hoping that this thing will be, like, done in maybe 10 or 12 more days. But I'm looking, by the last Monday of the month, hopefully that the May issue will be done. I mean, it hasn't been late yet, so it's not going to start being late now. But I got to interview Dennis Waitley and John Assaraf and Joe Vitale and John DiMartini and Karen Perkins and just all these amazing people. And I asked a lot of them the same questions, but not all. In fact, the lady whose interview I'm doing now, Marina Bruni, she's like a left-right brain specialist, and she has background in law and coaching, and that's a really interesting mix. I interviewed a lady, Megan Fettis, who's in this movie, and she is a joy coach. She helps people find joy. And so how your thoughts can help you create joy. That was really cool. That was a very interesting interview. And John Assaraf explores the science behind it all. I mean, his explanations were more scientific than all the rest because he studies brains. He's a brain researcher. That was fun. So I get to create a lot more content. I've had people come to me saying, let's write a book or let's do a magazine. In fact, I do special edition magazines for private clients. I'll do short of the magazine where it's just that person. You're on the cover, the magazine's all about you, and we're done. I've had 3 people this month already, just 2.5 weeks into the month, who have signed up to do one of those with me. So
Yeah. Wow. Good
I'm
for
never
you.
bored. I'm never bored
Yeah.
ever.
Oh, well, so that's wonderful. What about personally? How have you been navigating that, with not being able to be close to friends or
Yeah.
family?
Phone calls happen more often.
Yeah.
And I've always been one to reach out on social media to the people who are in my circle, like almost daily. There are a few people that I reach out to almost every single day. And there are
Mhm.
people who I see online that I haven't talked to for a while. I just message them, hey, I hope you're doing well. Been thinking about you. And, sometimes I get a response back. But if I sense that someone's having a hard time, I'll talk them through it. It's just
Mhm.
because that's what a friend does.
Mhm.
And one friend in particular, we talk a lot more often on the phone than we used to. We chat online every day. His business has been significantly impacted by this because it involves going on location, and you can't do that now.
Mhm.
So that's been tough for him. And so I've been sort of feeding him ideas about how he can pivot in his business. I've been telling him forever, you need to teach what you do online to other people who want to do what you're doing.
Mhm.
Create a course, do it,
Yeah.
create content.
Yeah. Learn how to do it. And actually, there was these. I can't remember what their names are. There's these two people. One's in Australia and one's in Vancouver, and they're teaching people how to create online courses, and that's their company. And so I was watching, the
Yeah.
3-part intro of all of that, and because creating online content is not something that I've really spent a lot of time
Yeah.
doing. The work with that I did with you was really the first time I've ever even considered putting this company and putting myself out there to the masses.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with individuals and families and couples, and we do groups, and we do a lot of counseling, mental health,
Yeah.
addictions work. But it's all like one-on-one, or it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes there's like 12 people in a group or 8 people in
Right.
a group. But to speak to the masses and actually post videos online that hundreds of
Yeah.
people will watch, which is what's happening now,
Yeah.
was a learning curve that I
Yeah.
was uncomfortable with. Like, it
Yeah.
was I don't know what's going to happen
Yeah.
with this. But what I found is it's quite advantageous, in terms
Mm.
of accessing more people, getting more followers, things like that.
Yeah. And a lot of people are consuming content now. I've bought
Hmm.
courses that I haven't gone through yet
Right.
because I want to support my friends who have created content,
Yeah.
beta versions of a course. It's like, sure,
Yeah.
I'll, spend $47 on this or $97 on this. And yeah, because I want to support people. And here's the thing. In this time, a lot of people have pulled back, like I mentioned, and
Yeah.
they want to wait and see what happens. Well, here's the thing. The people that continue to invest in themselves and their business are the ones who are going to be miles ahead. Think about some of the iconic companies that got created during the last downturn. Airbnb, Uber.
Hmm.
I mean, Amazon took off. I mean, these are
Yeah.
all big names now.
Yeah.
And they started in a recession. So what can you
Hmm.
create now that people really need? And here's the thing. When I talk to book writing clients, for example, and this even applies to starting a business, the perfect intersection of 3 things will determine what you need to be doing, what you know a lot about, what your audience wants to know a little more about, and what your audience is willing to pay for. If your idea intersects those 3 things, what you know, what your audience wants to know, and what your audience will pay for, that's your book. That's your business
Hmm.
idea. That is your pivot. So let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. You've taught me a lot in the work that we've done together. And
Good.
it's really neat to be learning about who you're corresponding with, and who clients of yours have been, and listening to that Authorpreneur Live. That was just
Yeah.
fascinating. It was just neat to
Yeah.
see you conduct that
Yeah.
when I was a client of yours, and,
Yeah.
it was, so, but I'm so new at this stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for what this might look like, and figuring out how to do a course, like even a class. Should it be half an hour long, an hour long? Like, who
Yeah.
knows? But I think the point here of what I hear you saying, and this is what we can say to our viewers here, perhaps, is you can pivot online,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Hmm.
when people have had to close their brick and mortar businesses, and I mean, like, not just close the doors. I'm getting postings on Facebook saying, oh, this coffee shop is closing. we just couldn't handle it. We couldn't handle the pandemic. And we're, but those people who owned that specific coffee shop, they have transferable skills that they can do other things with.
Right.
You're talking about repurposing content. It's like repurposing skills.
Yes.
It's like, okay, yes, this has happened. A lot of businesses are going under. What are people going to do about it? And so we can become very depressed. We can say, oh, my life is over. I've lost this and that. I had to close a business too. Yeah, it was a cycling business, and we had to close the doors.
Yeah.
We had to move out of that building. What are we going to do with our brand? We're trying to figure that out. And we will open again. We just don't know what that looks like or when or
cycling classes. You mean like Peloton or whatever that's called?
Yeah, it's in person, right? So it's and that company does it online, and they're just brilliant in how they've kind of facilitated this business. So and we've gone online, but it's rudimentary from what Peloton is actually doing. So but the point is that, and I love the enthusiasm you come with, which is part of the reason I asked you to join me here. Good. Because it doesn't have to be, so we have this great curveball, like, oh, nobody saw this coming, and then boom, we've lost a ton of stuff. And then we can sit and we can wallow in that, or we can do something about it. And that's what I hear you saying is like, take all of this and all these skills. Like when you started your business, it was slow. You didn't, when the Monday came and you had nowhere to go. I remember that. I have had jobs. Like I worked from when I was 16 years old or 15 all the way, like until, gosh, when did I go on my own? I must have been, 28 or 29 when I finally said, I'm going to just do this on my own. And the Monday came along, I had nowhere to go. And I was like, now what? And I didn't have a lot of work either, because you need to build it. So repurpose your skills, right? And do something about it. Or you can choose to be depressed and lose yourself in that. Yeah. And that's what I think is really dangerous.
Yeah. And I think repurposing your skills is so important, because when I speak to young people about careers, and I remember saying this a few times, I mean, this dates me a little bit, and I'll tell them, when I graduated from high school, when I was sitting in your chair, there was no internet. There were no cell phones.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how did you connect with people? We went outside and talked to people. Okay. So my point is, there are many, many industries that exist today that did not exist when I was in high school. And on the flip side, I would say to students today, to young people today, there are industries that do not exist 30 years from now that a lot of you will be working in. So skills. And what are the skills that will always stand the test of time? Communication, learn how to write and speak well. Sales, marketing, persuasion, technology will always be, if you are good at embracing and learning technology, you will always have a place to go. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this piece around, people who are trying to say repurpose their skills, or, they're saying, okay, well, I've had this business close. Now what do I do? And this is such a hard question to ask, and it's such a broad vision that I'm having here, but there's so many different things people can do online. So how do we give people some motivation, or words of motivation or encouragement to do something different? If they're, because I know for businesses that have closed, it's just so hard for people. What do we do now? And I want to be able to encourage them. And you're just such an expert in all of this, and you've been doing this for years and years. So are there any words of encouragement that you can give to people who really don't know how to get their message out, or what to do with themselves, or how to repurpose their time also? Like, if you don't have an office to go to, what are you doing with your time?
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
I mean, I think I see people posting about how they're now catching up on all the Netflix shows that they've not been able to watch. And that's fine. There's no judgment. I don't have Netflix. I don't, and I don't care. So, I mean, I see people posting about Tiger King. I don't need to watch it because everyone else is posting on it. And so without watching the show, I can say with almost 100% certainty that Carol Baskin did kill her husband. So I don't know, but I would say you have to figure out what is going to advance your business next. And I would really say self-care is so important. Right. Listen to motivational audios. I listen to an audiobook or affirmations probably for 30 minutes a day. And they're on YouTube for free, wealth affirmations. I'm listening to a book that Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield did years ago called The Aladdin Factor. It's about learning how to ask for what you want. And there are lots of case studies about people who have asked for what they want and have gotten it. And they talk about the reasons why people don't ask for stuff. I think people are afraid. They're judging whether someone will help them or not. Here's the thing, reach out and ask for help. If there's a place you want to go, there are people out there who have gone where you've been or where you want to go. So ask. A lot of people are wanting to collaborate now. So find people who have a similar audience to you if you're an entrepreneur and figure out ways that you can collaborate. And it's got to be a fair collaboration. I mean, a lot of people reached out to me and they wanted to barter services. I'm like, you know what? I can't pay my office rent with a barter. I can't pay for exposure. I can't pay my rent with exposure. That's the other pet peeve of mine. It's, oh, do this for free. You'll get exposure. Okay, well, maybe when you're starting out, that has some merit. But you want to play fair with people. So write a list of things down that you're good at. And if you're not sure, ask other people, when you think of me running a business, what do you think that's going to be? I mean, people do this all the time with TED Talk memes. If I was to give a TED Talk, what do you think I'd be talking about? Something like that. If I was going to run a business, what do you think I would be doing? What's your vision? Or if I was to write a book, what do you think that book should be about? What would you expect a book from me to be about?
Well, and that's actually, I remember that I did that, and I think it could have been because you encouraged me to, but I sent an email out and a Facebook post about, I'm writing a book. What would everybody like to see in that book? This is what it's about, and let me know which directions you'd like me to go, answer some questions. And I didn't have a ton of responses, but I had some really solid responses saying, could you explore this topic? And could you explore, this and that? And so that was really neat. And I've kept those, and I'm actually going to expand this book now into the things we've learned through the pandemic and these videos and all of that, and double the size of the one that we created together. Good. And just ask people, because I don't have it all here. I might think I have this vision, but I don't have it all figured out in here. So when I ask a mass of people and they say, I say, well, what would you like to see? Or what would you think that would be really great for me to talk about based on my skills or whatever? People will tell you what they think.
Yeah. And build your presence online. That's another thing that you can do during this time, because we're all online now. I mean, because where else are we going to go? This is how we connect with people now. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, however you choose to connect, Instagram. So be active. And here's the thing, you want to create content that your audience wants to know more about. You want to interact with other people's posts, not just with a like and I agree, but make a comment about what they've posted, something that shows that you actually read their post. Give people a chance to interact. Create a post. I mean, sometimes your post will be fun. It's not going to be all about, I want to sell my thing. Create a post that creates engagement. Like, for example, I did a post last week. I found a meme that I thought was hilarious. These two bunny rabbits are talking to each other, and one of them says, I want to wake up with you for the rest of my life. The other rabbit says, I wake up at 5 a.m. every day. First rabbit turns around and says, never mind. I had almost 100 likes on that. I mean, just a stupid, funny meme. And everybody that made a comment, I would respond. This is how you create engagement in Facebook's algorithm. Not that I'm a Facebook algorithm expert, I'm not, but I know that more people see my stuff when I interact with everyone who's interacted with me. So if someone has commented on your post, respond back to it somehow. So and be active in commenting and supporting other people's posts too, especially people you want to be connected with. Be on their radar. That's how you get on the radar, is by not stalking. That sounds creepy, but by just actively engaging in a lot of the stuff that they're doing. Right.
Yeah. And just like connecting, because it's so interesting how when someone says, they leave a comment and they're like, oh, well, this and that. And, I liked this, or I didn't like this, or whatever. And if you respond in a timely way, then they go, oh, like that person actually pays attention. Like, I'm feeling heard. And if someone feels heard and understood, well, then you're more likely to have a consistent connection with them over time. Yeah. Right. And not only will that help to improve, perhaps their life. And I speak from a counselor's perspective, when we connect with people, we work to not help them, but like open doors where they can choose to walk through to improve their lives. Like, they're in charge of improving their own lives. And we we guide on which directions could be healthiest.
Right.
And then that creates longevity and connection,
Yeah.
and also assists in building the brand that I'm so passionate about, and that our team
Right.
has become so passionate about, right?
Right.
So it's just a connecting, just ask questions. But if we don't do that, and we're just like, say we are online, but we're not saying anything, we're not posting anything, we're just witnessing, that's okay too. But if you're trying to build a business, what I'm learning is nobody's gonna know who you are,
Mm-hmm. No,
right?
that's why you want to be seen everywhere. Do a variety of things. Do a post, maybe do a survey, do a Facebook Live,
Mm-hmm.
do a free event. I mean, do something, but create content and get out there. In fact, one of my Facebook friends, who is a brilliant marketer on Facebook, did a 5-day challenge a couple of weeks ago about how to sell more on Facebook without spending money. I participated in that challenge, and one of my new clients from last week came because I made a post during that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I made money off of a free challenge someone else posted. So it works. And here's the thing. If you are in business and you have the kind of service that people can consume now, that's great. If you have the kind of business where you're creating something that someone can use later, this is the perfect time, because we will be reopening. And it's going to take you a while to create that thing that you're doing for them. So this is the time that you can let me create that, so that when we're ready to reopen, it's ready to go.
Absolutely. So Brian, what do you, just, from your professional and personal opinion,
Yeah.
as things start to open, what do you envision in terms of, like, people, everyone's online right now, because where else are we going to go, is what you said.
Right.
And that's true.
Right.
But then when things start to reopen, do you imagine that people are going to, go back into their 9-to-5s? Like, I think this changes everything.
It
I don't
does.
think people are going to leave the digital world in the way that they were once away from the digital
Yeah.
world prior to the
Yeah.
pandemic.
I think some people will use this as a reason to stay home, and they've realized, those who are experiencing a great connection with their family want to do that. I think some people will go back. I really have a question about how this is going to affect the retail world going forward, though, because it's going to be hard. I mean, I've always wanted to invest in some kind of commercial real estate, but I would probably want it to be more like offices. I mean, I think some people are ready to get out of their house. So I think some businesses will thrive, but if there's still restrictions, with social distancing and stuff, I mean, restaurants, you're not going to probably not ever have full capacity again. At least, well, maybe not for a while, So, I mean,
Because people are
restaurants,
scared.
people are scared.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you don't feel comfortable going out, then you can stay home. It's okay. No one's going to make you
And
go
you can
out.
still get takeout.
I mean, I've been doing a lot of that. I've been doing a lot of takeout because I still want to support. And here's the thing. When you are of the mindset that you want to help, love, and support other people, it comes back to you. And usually it's in ways that you're not expecting. I mean, when some people say give money and you expect money to come to you in return, that may not be the way the universe gives back to you. Right. If you give your connections, you might get money. If you give money, someone might give you connections. I mean, I have frequently received in very different ways than I've given, and it's always better. You just can't you cannot outgive the universe. You just can't, because the universe is infinite. So it's been great, and I'm having more conversations, and I think this is going to be a boom for my business and what I'm doing, because I'm helping people create content that they can use. Books, magazines, having people be on my show. I've been interviewed on a lot of podcasts lately in the last 2 months, more than ever. And it's great. It's given me extra exposure, and I've made more friends. I've had a lot more people connect with me. It's been a blessing. And side note, when quarantine is over, maybe we shouldn't tell some people. Maybe some people should stay home.
That's fair. Yeah. And it might be better for some people. And this is the other thing. It's like, you can still build a digital presence and a digital practice of some kind, or a business, and still have an office somewhere that you go to if you wish.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like, I'm totally biased in this, because I love the online business, and the transition was super scary and hard, from going from a 9-to-5, making more money at the time than I was making in my digital business, and then transitioning over. But now, like, there's no way that I'm going to go back to a 9-to-5 and make what I can make today.
No.
Right? But it does this too, right? And And so we're all affected by the market shifts for sure.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but we
I
all
wouldn't, yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I wouldn't want to go to a place where they tell me when to show up and when I can leave. No.
But you have to be very proactive with your time. You have to be, like scheduling things, and you have,
Hmm.
because for that, because you said you don't have Netflix, but for someone like me or someone who loves watching things on Netflix,
Yeah.
I had to be really careful about not.
Yeah.
Like, it was so easy to say, "Oh, let's just watch another episode. Let's watch another
Right.
episode," and then before I know it, 4 hours is gone. Netflix is asking me if I'm still watching the show, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still watching the show." But I haven't done anything. I haven't got
Right.
anything done. And it's to me, it's like, yes, I've rested, and
Yeah.
self-care is very important. But
Yeah.
there, for me, I transition over this line of wasting time.
Yeah. And
And I'm like, okay,
Facebook can be very addictive too.
oh,
I've
Facebook,
learned
yeah,
that. And sometimes at the end of the day, I'm appalled at how much time I spent on Facebook. I'm still getting work done, but it's caused me to really evaluate, am I really using every minute to the best? And I think honestly, all of us can say there are minutes in every single day that we probably weren't the most productive. I mean, you're not a machine. You have to decompress somewhere, sometime in your day.
yeah.
But when you start justifying, oh, just let me scroll one more. Oh, let me just read one more post. Oh, let me watch one more video. And that pretty soon your day's done. I'm like, what just happened here?
I know. So as an entrepreneur, we need to be organized. And so what I've done is, like, when this pandemic first started, and I'm like, well, I don't have an office to go to anymore because we closed the doors. And I, still doing a meeting with clients and things like that, running the business as I normally would. But I started watching a lot more TV. So in that first 2 weeks, and plus there was like personal losses that were happening in
Oh
there,
yeah.
and business losses. And there was a
Yeah.
ton of loss that happened in the last 6 weeks in my life. And so becoming more and more anxious and depressed about, like, not knowing, and these losses, and watching more TV. And I had to actually sit down with myself and turn it around. I said, here's some parameters for me. Like, let's watch a bit of TV while we're having lunch, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then before bed, but I'm not going to allow myself to spend hours and hours anymore. And I haven't. So,
Yeah.
but it was hard. 2 weeks I did that. And then I was feeling depressed, and I was like,
Yep.
okay, we're going to do something different. It took me about a week to ease my way out of that behavior, because I was becoming, really comfortable in that, in
Yeah.
Facebook and things like that. So since then, much
Yeah.
less TV now, much
Yeah.
more productivity.
Yeah.
Still working on, delegation of tasks and things like that.
Right.
But it takes, it's easier when you work for somebody, because they tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and when the deadlines are.
Yeah.
But when you're working for yourself, you have to manage all that stuff on your own. And so there are some people out there who say, well, I can't manage that stuff on my own. Like, I'm not good at this. I don't know business, and I don't know how to organize myself. I just want someone to tell me what to do. And so in that case, then work for somebody. You can still work digitally for somebody too.
Sure. Absolutely.
All my staff work from home.
Even
right?
if you set up an account on Upwork or Fiverr or FreeUp, that's with 3 .com, and you can hire yourself out as a freelancer, and people could hire you to keep you busy while you're trying to get your thing going. I mean, there have been a couple of people where I would just write articles for them at $100 a pop just to keep myself afloat. I don't do a lot of that now. I mean, I can, but I write books and I produce my own magazine, and the income opportunities are greater with those things. But in a pinch, don't be afraid to do that, because there are people out there who need what you do. And if you haven't figured out what you can do, you better figure that out.
Ask questions. People will tell you.
Absolutely.
People will tell you what you're good at. People will hold a mirror up and say, oh, you would be so good at X, Y, and Z. And even if you don't have the confidence to do that, it's like, practice it, little steps. Because Brian, do you think that a year and a half ago, if I had said to you, with what you knew about me, seeing the very first interview you did with me, if I had said to you, hey, Brian, a year and a half from now, I'm going to have my own podcast, my video podcast, like that would not have been believable to me or anybody in my life at that time, right? And here we are. And you know how I did that? Little steps to challenge my my fears, stepping into bravery, right? And doing something a little bit different. And here we are now. This is video number 35 or something like that. And I'm like, okay, like this is
Yep.
okay. People can say whatever they want.
I think if you had asked me about that at that point, I would say if you've never done it before, experiment with doing a 5-minute Facebook Live first and seeing how that feels. Decide if that belongs to you.
Yeah.
And then just gradually make it longer. If your idea is to have an hour-long podcast, start with short content first, test the market, see if people are resonating with what you're saying, and then go from there.
Yeah. You got to trust, like there's this inner sense of knowing, right? Like I can't imagine that you could be as good at your craft as you are if you didn't love it.
I love it. It's my happy hour. I tell people this, it's my happy hour.
Yeah.
And it's on Monday. I do it on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I do my show on Monday on purpose to give myself something to look forward to on Monday, because most people don't like Mondays.
That's amazing.
And the caveat to that, it gives me the entire weekend to figure out when I want to prepare for my show. So I'm giving myself not the night before if I don't want to, you know what I mean? So there's a method to all of my madness, even if I don't always know what it is.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, there's people out there who they're trying, they're slogging through, trying to get their job done and they hate it. And it's just like, you know, take a look at that. Trust the intuitive sense of knowing what is right for you. And then like touch and let go. Let's step into a little bit and let's step back and see what happens. Right. There's a book called Flow, and the author, honestly, I cannot pronounce his name, but I'm going to look it up while we're talking. And this book, I read this book, I don't know, I must have been like 15 or
I think
maybe a little bit older than
you
that.
mentioned this during our book project.
Goodness.
Yes.
Flow book. Yeah. So when we were doing our book project, okay. It's called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. And this book, it's by an author that his first name is Mihaly, but I cannot pronounce his last name. Nor do I know the gender of this human, but, amazing book. And I recommend it to anybody who is interested in connecting to what is true for them. Because it's not work. Like when you love your work, like you're looking forward to doing this show on Mondays because you love it. That's not work. And yet you're getting all kinds of exposure. You know, there are aspects, I think, of our jobs that we don't like, but as the fundamental point of why we do what we do, we love.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what this book is about. It's about finding your flow and having optimal experience that you can make a living off of and enjoy your life, you know? And so I would recommend people who are searching for that to read that. There's tons of books I would recommend people to read, but I loved that one. Yeah. And it helped me to focus my energies without having to feel like I need to be pulled in all these other directions.
Absolutely. And when you get in a state of flow, stay in it. You know, take breaks occasionally, but because you have to give yourself a little me time, you know, even 5-10 minutes, step outside and just get your bearings and just do it. But once you're in a state of momentum, here's another tip, give yourself something to look forward to, because we tend to get depressed, down and out when we think there's no hope. And if you have no hope, it's because you have not given yourself something to look forward to. Think about people in hospitals or nursing homes, and they die on Christmas Day or the day after Christmas Day. Why is that? Why do more people die on Christmas Day or after Christmas Day? Well, it's because they gave themselves something to look forward to. They knew they would see their family. Yep. And now, if I'm really sick and I don't know when I'm going to see them again, it's like, take me now, you know? So you give yourself something to look forward to. And always
that's really interesting, because there was a long time ago, there was, in a partnership that I was in, she had a friend who whose husband was dying of terminal cancer. And like, I don't know much about this. I have my own sense of spirituality and things and higher power, but this, like that piece about him looking forward to something, it was Valentine's Day. Yeah. And she believes he waited for her to have Valentine's Day. Like he was very, very sick. And he had, you know, died a few times before, and they revived him. And so Valentine's Day came, and they had that together. He was very sick, and he died at 2 a.m. the next morning. Right. And so she said, like, he waited for me, and we spent that together, and it was wonderful. even though he was really sick. And so I believe that there is some incredible universal force that we can tap into when we look forward to something, when we find our flow, when we tap into truth, like these things, you know. And the story, like when she talks about Cam, you know, it's beautiful. She said, like, it was really amazing, as hard as it was.
Yeah.
And so having something to look forward to has unlimited benefits. But it's like, I can't say whether or not it's true that he waited or not, but it appears that way. And if that helps her, then that's great. It helps people out there to say, it's important to look forward to something. It's important to love what we do. And if we don't, we ask ourselves, like, why are we doing this? What else can we do so we can love it and still feed our families?
Yeah, absolutely. Do what you love and find ways to give. I know that may sound counterintuitive, but when you are in a state of wanting to give, the universe will flow back to you.
And that's like the idea of The Secret. Yeah. Right. And I read that book and watched that, like, when I was maybe 17 years old. I watched the original release of that, and I'd be interested to look more into that. But it was like power of manifestation. Yeah. So for example, you know, you talked about your story and how you started out, and you're like, well, you know, I was writing resumes. You were writing resumes. You know what I was doing? I was writing resumes too. When I was 18 years old or 19, I was writing resumes, and then it became like a coach for people to find work. And that's how this idea of, you know, more education around counseling and becoming a counselor came into play, as being a job coach. So like, you know, just see what, like, little steps, and then see what it transforms into, and look at where you are now.
Yeah, I didn't know that my path would unfold in exactly this way. I knew I wanted to do a radio show. I knew I wanted to interview world-class achievers and learn what they did, and do an interview style radio show. 370 episodes later, here I still am. Yeah. 8.5 years, January 2012. And now there's a magazine. I've written 4 books. I ghostwrite books for other people. I had no idea this was going to evolve in the way that it has, but I'm so happy and grateful for all of it.
Yeah. And you worked hard for that.
I did.
Right? Hours and hours, and troubleshooting, and like trial and error, and like trying a different thing, and you know, saying, oh, people didn't really like that, I might not do that again, or I'll revamp it and do it in this little way. Yeah. And that takes dedication. It takes self-love.
Yeah. And here's something else that I've learned. It's okay to say no. It's really okay to say no. I interviewed Dan Locke last year, and he's a multimillionaire business owner. I believe he's up in the Vancouver area. And I asked him, one of the things I asked him is, how do you know what to say yes to and what to say no to? And he said, well, when you're starting, you pretty much have to say yes to everything, because you're trying to get going. Once you get established, you can start to say no to a few things. And now he says, I say no to almost everything. You basically have to prove that it's worth my time, because my time is valuable. I have a lot going on. A lot of people, when you're really established, a lot of people want a piece of you. I mean, a lot of people are saying, I want to come on your show, or I know someone who needs to be on your show. If the person making the referral is someone I don't know, it's probably not happening, unless they're bringing me somebody who I know who they are. Yeah. You know? And maybe the fix to that is to start charging people to come on my show, which I actually am entertaining. There are people, very well-established people, who are doing that. And maybe I should start doing that here and there. I don't know. But you can start saying no to some things, and people have wanted to collaborate with me on some projects, and some of it I've enjoyed and others not. In fact, you have to really evaluate, is there going to be a fair exchange here? I can give you an example, because we did a book together. I'm sure you could appreciate this. I had a lady who wanted to, well, at first, when I quoted her how much I would charge to write a book, she's like, I don't have that. I'm like, okay, you know, come back, you know, when you're in a better position. Then a couple months later, she would say, well, how much would you charge if I wrote the book myself and you just edited that book for me? And I gave her a different quote. Then a couple months later, she said, I do speaker reels for people. How about if I do a speaker reel for you and you write my book? I'm like, get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. It'll take you like 2 days to do what you want to do, and it'll take me probably 4 to 6 months to do what I'm going to do for you. It's not a fair trade. No. And I haven't heard from her again. I'm like, I shut that down fast. It's like, really? You think that's a fair trade? No. I mean,
Yeah,
if
no,
you're
and
asked,
I agree. Like, when you quoted me what I wanted you to do for me, I think I had to pay you like over time before we even started the project,
yeah,
right? Like in
I think we did.
increments.
Yeah, we did a payment plan. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
willing to do that if someone's really serious. Now, here's the caveat to that. I have done monthly payment plans for a couple of people, and that almost never works out because at one point they
Mm.
decide to stop paying you. Or if they lose their job, okay, now you can't pay me, but you still expect me to work on your book? I had a client like that last year,
Yeah.
and I'm not naming names, but I had somebody who made 2 payments and started harassing me about when's my book gonna be done. I'm like, dude, you haven't. I finally said, dude, you haven't paid me in 3 months.
Yeah.
I would not give you a draft of your completed work until you're done paying me.
Which is fair.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
is.
fair market thing that we
Yeah.
have to do to survive.
Yeah, and we did not end up finishing the book because it was just not a great match energetically anymore. And it sometimes it's worth more to cut someone loose than it is to keep them. It really is.
Yeah. And I think like we're really big on it not being about the money and being more
Right.
about the human, but at the
Yeah.
same time, we have to feed our families too. And like
Mm-hmm.
and in a pandemic, this is really tough that like people don't have as much money
Yeah.
or they're being really frugal, right? Things
Yeah.
like that. But so this is, we're trying to give back. We're giving away a lot.
Right.
We're doing, these
Right.
videos, we're doing these emergency groups,
Yeah.
we're doing free services. And then if people can pay, then we do ask them to pay what we're asking, right? And
Absolutely.
we have
Yeah.
parameters around that. So
Right.
I've had to build that in too, so we're not taken advantage of by our clients, but we're
Right.
also not taking advantage of our clients, right?
Right.
So it's about finding what your worth is and recognizing what you're willing to give away, and there's a trade-off there too.
Yeah.
There's referrals that come from giving free services, and
Yep.
that's what you said, like give it away, create something, do a free course or whatever. That's super valuable. But some people say, well, counseling is really expensive, and it shouldn't be that expensive, it should be free. In fact, I won't name names, but I had a lady contact me once, and she was like, oh, I really want to be part of this part of your counseling organization, and I only want to pay, like, it was something like $10. And I was like, okay, well, we can put you in the donation program and we can do that for a period of 10 weeks. And it's not about the money there. But then I said, after that, we're going to ask you to pay somewhere on the sliding scale fee. And this is the reason why, like, our counselors need to pay their bills and things like that. And then she actually blatantly said to me, counseling is not worth that much money. I can't believe you charge that. And it was like, well, then go to a free agency kind of thing. We're offering to give you next to nothing service, and that person actually ended up receiving services free of charge for that period of time, and then never heard from her again. And
Yeah.
that's okay, like, but running a business is part of understanding what your worth is,
Right.
and recognizing that you don't have to give everything away. And if people
Right.
can't pay, we make provisions. Like,
Yeah.
for me, like, I wasn't rich. I had to do two or three payments to you to pay it off before we could get the project really going or get it
Yeah.
done. And I did that.
You
I
did.
honored that with you, and
did.
you honored with me what I
Right.
was asking from you. But
Right.
I'm not going to come to you and say, hey, Brian, can you write this book for me for free?
No. I would say go hire that out on Fiverr.
Yeah. Right.
And you
Because,
get what you pay for. Although I will
you-
say I've been very lucky with my graphic designers that I've hired on Fiverr. They do really good work. Sometimes you have to explain things more than once, and sometimes they don't always fix the things you ask them to, and you have to tell them again. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, great. But I usually get the work that I need in the time that I need most of the time.
Yeah. So I think this message here, I mean, this interview is really about assisting entrepreneurs who are
Yeah.
trying to, who were struggling in business, and they're trying to
Yes.
get their name out there. And here are some ideas of what you can be doing to
Mhm.
further your brand. And
Yeah.
part of that is understanding what is, like, I use the word ethical because that's big in my wheelhouse here, but what's ethical to charge, and how you stand up for your worth, but still be compassionate towards others who need a little bit of help here and there.
Yeah.
And we do our best to provide everything
Yeah.
we can to people who
Yeah.
need help, but we have limits.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a brand new client who signed up with me almost 3 weeks ago. And one thing I love about this person is he said, I want to honor you by, paying you what you're worth. And I did work out a deal with him. But in the end, he says, I don't have half of that amount up front. Would you accept a small deposit to lock in the rate? And we don't even have to start until I can give you up to half of your money to start. I'm like, yes, absolutely. So he PayPal'd me, a couple $100, and he's in the door, and we're going to work together when he is able to give me some more, and then we will start, and then he'll pay me the rest when we're done. And that's fine. I'm willing to do that, but I just don't want to be nickel and dime. Can I give you like, $50 here, $100 here? And they're like, okay, well, so if you're gonna be random about your payments, I'm gonna be real random about when I do your work. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but,
because it's about being respectful of human beings, and we all have reasons for, like we all have to pay our bills, right?
Right.
And I think if we can be respectful both ways, then it's a seamless process. And ours was, even though I wasn't able to pay you up front everything, it was a seamless process. You were gracious about it. I was gracious about it, and it worked so well.
It worked so well. Yeah.
Because
and
we
you
were
were a joy to
respectful of each other.
And you were a joy to work with. It was fun to explore some of I learned a lot writing your book. I did. It's like, oh, that's really cool. It's like, oh, okay. And sometimes in the editing process, I would like, okay, I think it might work a little better if we said it this way. And I didn't. So that's where I come in. It's like, let's massage this a little bit. And it's like, okay, we said this twice. Let's find a way to merge it. And that kind of stuff. That's what I do.
Yeah. And so even though you didn't hold it against me that I didn't have all the funds at one time,
not at all.
Because I'm going to add to it, and I'm going to probably send it back to you and say, how much will you charge me to edit this additional, 80 pages or whatever it is.
Okay.
And you can tell me like, if that's something you want to do. But the point is like, I will come to you because of such a great experience that I had working with you. There's a relationship that's been created there. So much so that even when I send you a message and I say, hey, Brian, do you want to have this conversations health hangout with me? And I can post it. You showed up, right? And that's really awesome, even though you probably have a ton of other stuff to be doing. That's more important than this right now.
I'm always here to support the people who have supported me. So that's the deal.
And that's the relationships that we build, right? And that's the importance of them too, right? And we maintain those relationships by continuing to be respectful.
Yeah.
So that's like, I think there's a lot of really valuable information in this conversation for entrepreneurs who are trying to transition to online. And the greatest advice piece here is like, start asking questions because you don't have it all figured out in your head. And if it's too big to figure out, well, then slow down, take a little step, try a 5-minute video, try, something very small, like you were saying.
And find Facebook groups in your niche. You'll probably find people who are in similar positions, or in some cases, hopefully the people who are the moderators of that group are a few steps ahead of where you are. It's a great place to ask questions, find out what the rules of that group are, but people are always willing to help. And, you always have your bad apples who kind of want to, don't even worry about what other people say, just block them if they're annoying. But for the most part, you'll find people really, really do want to help and won't judge. And if you get in a group like that, you're good to go. Lean on your network in times like this.
Absolutely. And it is just going to be so interesting to see as the world opens up again, if we're going to have that second wave that people are talking about, or if we're going to be able to maintain the openness. But, protect yourself, do what you need to do. And if, being at home online is a better fit for you, then embrace it, because it does work.
Yeah.
You have to work hard though.
I've got a great relationship with someone who I really respect, who's been on my show a couple times. He's a multimillionaire. He's built a lot of businesses, and we talked, and he reached out to me. He's like, how are you doing? Really, real talk. How are you doing? And I say, well, this. He's like, well, I'm starting a Facebook group. I'm doing a live every day at 10 o'clock. And we just got to talking about some stuff. And he says, you know what? Here's my calendar link. If anytime you need to talk, I'll talk to you for free. It's like he gave me his bat phone. I'm like, oh, I haven't had to use it yet, but at least I know. And he gave it to me because he knows I will not abuse him every 2 days and schedule 20 minutes of his time because I'm not a paying client of his right now. But when someone you love and respect gives you their bat phone, you don't abuse that. But at the same time, it's an invitation to ask for help if you really need it. So don't be afraid.
And there's tons of people out there who will drop everything to help. And there's tons of people who will say, no, I can't do this, but I can do this. And there's some people who will just straight up say no to you. And that is okay. That's that they need to do that for their boundaries. Ask someone else.
Absolutely.
Right? And just keep asking questions. And that's how I have gotten to where I am today, which is a fraction of where I want to be throughout my career. But it's a heck of a lot farther than I ever thought I would get when I was, 17, working at a movie theater, making popcorn for people, ripping tickets. Right?
Yeah. Things can change very, very quickly for good, so, not just for bad, but for good.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta put your energy into it, and you gotta work hard and be dedicated to your cause, but you have to figure out what your cause is first. And that comes through just life experience and understanding the truth in here. Right. So I'm mindful of time, and we can wrap up here in a moment, but I really want to promote the books that you have written. And so Brian, if you want to hold those up, that'd be great. And so Success Profiles, Conversations with High Achievers, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Yep. They're on Amazon.
That's wonderful. Yep. And so you can get them on Kindle, I think.
Yep.
Also, right?
Yep.
And then if you go to Brian's website, then you can see all about the radio show, and I imagine it's easy access to that, easy access to the magazine. And then of course, if you want to write a book, I would highly recommend that you contract with Brian, because he was just a gem to work with. So go to
briankwright.com, fill out the contact form, tell me that you saw me here, and that way I'll know. Because sometimes when someone who reaches out to me that I don't know, it's like, how do they find me? Who?
Yeah. It's really important to know where our sources are coming from, so we know what to do more of, right? Where people are getting more access.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, I just want to say I'm really grateful for the time, because I know how valuable time is, and I know how popular you are in your circles and everything. And
thank you.
Because you could have easily said, "Oh no, I don't have time for that, Amanda. I'm good," but you're here, and super grateful, and I'm excited for working together in the future, because God knows I don't have hours and hours and months to sit down and write another book, right? But we'll get this one nailed down and released, and you'll be my guy, when I come back and say, hey, I have another volume I want to do of this thing or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's do
for
this
sure. Brian, you're wonderful. Thanks again for the time, and then I'm certain that I'll be in touch at some point.
All right. Sounds wonderful. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, you bet. Take care, Brian.
Uh-huh.
Bye.